In this short video, I just want to talk a little bit about some of the main ways that the book of Revelation has been interpreted by scholars throughout history. So, as I talked about in the last lecture, the book of Revelation is most definitely the most complex, difficult to understand book in the New Testament. And so, one thing we don't want to do as we read this book is walk away from it and think we know exactly what the book is all about, that we understand every symbol, every description. Yeah, we don't want to do that because there's a lot of mystery wrapped up in this book, and so with that, there have been many different ways of interpreting the book, and how it relates to history and how it plays out through time. And so all four of these ways or lenses of interpretation have been promoted by, I would say, trustworthy scholars, intelligent scholars. And so you can kind of determine where you fall along these kind of in this grid. But basically, um, we don't want to isolate ourselves by saying that we're 100%, this is the way it is, and we're not willing to consider other options. And so we're going to look at these four primary approaches, which are the historicist view, the preterist, the idealist, and the futurist. So first up, we will look at the historicist. This views the events of Revelation as continuing throughout history. So it's basically a view that sees the book of Revelation as relating to all of history, in the sense that from the time that John wrote his letter, starting then to all the way until when Jesus comes back, any time in between those 2 points is fair game for Revelation to be applied to. So then symbols can be interpreted as specific events throughout history that have either already happened or will happen. So while this is I would say, is a popular view and it has been promoted by scholars, there is the danger, as I talked about in the last lecture, of getting so caught up in finding specific events throughout history that we tend to miss more of what John intended in terms of the more general message. So that is kind of the historicist approach. Next is the preterist, and the preterist believes that Revelation should be viewed only in terms of events relating to the first century. So think about the context that I told you about in the last lecture and how there was a lot going on. There were the conflicts between the church and Rome, and we remember that Rome was, a large world power at the time. And so according to this view, the events were fulfilled spiritually in the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD, or then a little bit later in the fall of Rome. And so this view basically just views Revelation as everything happening in the past in the first century. Therefore, we wouldn't be looking, definitely not looking to the future, but also not looking throughout the rest of church history to see how that maps into Revelation. So that's the second one. That's the preterist view. Second is the idealist, and the idealist view is basically timeless. So it views the events of Revelation as more symbolic, as the description between the struggle between God and Satan, where God does become victorious. So in this view, Revelation can basically apply to any period of any time. It's not necessarily grounded in time. And so this is where the symbolism kind of takes over, and you only look at the symbols and don't at all look at fitting the events of the book into real time in history. And then finally, you have the futurist view, which just views the book of Revelation, all the things that happen within it, as happening immediately before Jesus returns. So on this view, I would say this one is another very popular one, especially in our area of the United States. But this is a view that all these things are prophetic about what's going to happen just right before Jesus comes back. So this is when people kind of get into looking at the events that are going on around us and start to point to how those events could be fulfillments of Scripture, because then those people that that are thinking about the events of today, they can then say, oh, so then that means that maybe Jesus is about to return. And so while there are definitely some dangers there, as there are dangers with diving in too deep into all of the views, I think that here you can just get caught up way more in the context of us today rather than staying focused on that first century context. So this time, that would be the time period right before Jesus returns where all these events begin to happen. This time is known as the tribulation. So how that would work is there would be this period of the tribulation where the events in Revelation take place, then Jesus would come back, then there would be the final judgment, and then the new creation. So that is just a very brief flyby of the four primary ways of interpreting Revelation. You can, as you read the book, think through kind of where you fall. And I would love to hear what you think. We'll have a discussion on that just to kind of weigh these options.